Is this really the worst Premier League stadium? Ladies and gents, this week we've been visiting English football grounds which come under a lot of criticism. Now, as a massive contrast to this, last night we were at Kenilworth Road, probably one of the most criticised grounds of them all, but the criticism towards Kenilworth Road comes down to the fact that the facilities are iffy, it's old school, it's a little bit edgy to put it politely, whereas this place behind me, the London Stadium, which was built for the 2012 Olympic Games, comes under criticism from a completely different angle. Now this looks fantastic, we did come here for a stadium tour last year, but the atmosphere is somewhat iffy. I mean, West Ham fans themselves are probably the first to criticise this place, having come from the Boleyn Ground, Upton Park, where the atmosphere was fantastic. Naturally, an Olympic ground that has a running track, or did have a running track around the pitch, means the fans are further away from the action. So the atmosphere suffers as a result. But just like in Luton, just like in Gillingham, where I'm off in a moment, and just like Crystal Palace the other day, we're going to try and find nice things to say. This is football paradise, ladies and gents, so let's bust some more myths. Is the London Stadium as bad as people make out for atmosphere? Because a lot of people say this is the worst Premier League stadium. Right then guys, let's sink our teeth into it. Of course, this is an athletic stadium where football takes place. It wasn't built with the purpose of football in mind. So we need to bear that in mind when we come to criticise the London Stadium. And again, West Ham fans are probably some of the first to criticise the stadium, so this isn't a knock on West Ham fans and the atmosphere they generate. It's how that atmosphere, how that noise is held in to the stadium. Those of you who watch wrestling like me, bit geeky, probably should go out of wrestling. Wrestlers talk about when they're at WrestleMania and they're at big dome venues for WrestleMania and how they can't really hear the crowd until they kind of watch things back, because open roofs, of course, big crowds far away from the ring in their case, or the pitch in our case, that noise travels upwards and out of the stadium, whereas the old school grounds like the Boleyn Ground, the old rickety stadiums like Kenilworth Road, it really holds the noise in, the noise bounces off the tin, the walls or whatever, and it probably makes the atmosphere sound better, if anything, than it already is. So we are going to get into the game, the last home game West Ham played versus City. We have uploaded a matchday vlog, so I'm not going to talk about too much the matchday in particular. Let's just as well put things into perspective. If you go on Transfermarkt, the second highest average attendance in the Premier League last season was West Ham, not Tottenham Hotspur. Obviously Manchester United with Old Trafford topped the list, as they normally do, the biggest club stadium in the league in England. But the London Stadium, I mean, as I check my notes, 62,440 people on average throughout the 23-24 season. In terms of capacity, it's around 62,500, so just a little bit under that. Of course, that capacity can go up. There's loads of room for it to go up, but they've had to move certain stands inwards. You'll see in a moment that the upper tier where we are, you're really far back compared to the tier below, or ground level, or whatever. You've got, for example, City fans kind of behind the goal, and then the other City fans who are in the upper tier, they're miles back. But if, again, we're sitting the opposite end from the Bobby Moore stand, which is kind of West Ham's end, the noisier end. So of course the atmosphere, had we been in that stand from a home perspective, probably would have been better. So we can't critique too much from that point of view. But ladies and gents, who cares what I think? Sat here in a Holstein Kiel shirt. Let's hear from a West Ham fan. sometimes the London Stadium comes under criticism, probably more so from West Ham fans, obviously, for the fact that you're miles away from the pitch, and people say it's the worst Premier League atmosphere. Do you think there's any truth in that, James? You've been there a lot, so...
Yeah, I don't think it's the worst atmosphere, because every time I've been, they've made it bouncing.
I thought you were going to say Old Trafford.
Well, no, Old Trafford's a good atmosphere. I do have to say, like,
clip it up.
Yeah, clip it up. The TRA make a difference. They do. It's facts. I hate to say it, but they do. The worst atmosphere in the league is quite easily like Bournemouth or somewhere like that. Like
if we're showing some.
Chelsea's bad. Chelsea is
That's
bad.
the prawn sandwich brigade, isn't it? Yeah. So in terms of West Ham's current atmosphere at the London Stadium, out of 10, what you're rating it?
6. It's, when you've had the experience of Upton Park, it's never going to be Upton Park. But the problem we've got here is it really does depend where your seat is.
Yeah.
So for us at Bobby Moore Lower, there's always a magnificent atmosphere, and we're not that far away from the pitch. But once you start moving around the sides, and you've got the distance, and you've got the height going up the top, there are times, James will bear me out, we can just stand and have a conversation like this, which you do not expect to have at an intense Premier League football match. So it really does depend on the score, the match, the weather. It's crazy, but the atmosphere is nowhere near what it was.
So we've got one of West Ham's newest signings, Nicholas Füllkrug, on the banner over there. Now, I'm not going to go over old ground. If you want to know more about the stadium, its history with the Olympics and so on, again, as I said, I've done a stadium tour, so check that video out on the channel. But as we're mentioning in a German player, my first thoughts when I went to Leverkusen, the Bayer Arena, was how similar that ground is to this place, the London Stadium. Again, I don't want to go over old ground because we've covered all this in the stadium tour video, but even though it was built for the Olympics, I love how West Ham have kind of made it their own, unique, which is ironic because they actually rent this, don't they? They don't actually own the stadium, but you can see all those floor tiles, you can see the I'm Forever blowing bubbles around the ground. And as we make our way to, at United at Old Trafford, you've got the Holy Trinity of Bobby Charlton, George Best and Dennis Law. But here is the Holy Trinity of West Ham United, of course, and England, because you've got Bobby Moore, Martin Peters and Jeff Hurst. Not celebrating the '66 World Cup win, though. This is the European Cup Winners' Cup, which, again, if we're referencing German clubs, they beat 1860 Munich to win that trophy. Now, you've seen the start of the video. We're not just here for a quiet wander. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning, but I thought I'd come nice and early, do the intro here, before we watch West Ham United versus Manchester City. I did upset a few City fans towards the end of last season, and I don't want to provoke with my camera and cause any more trouble, so I thought I'd get the filming out early. Anyway, I'm off to Gillingham, the Priestfield Stadium, and I'll see you back here for match day at the London Stadium. How is the atmosphere going to hold up? We're playing... God, I'm not a hammer, but maybe I am. Maybe I am an honorary hammer for the day.
And the captain armband has obviously been given to him this year, and in terms of leadership culture. It's West Ham 2.
Here we go then, guys. Moment of truth time. The atmosphere's building up. It's looking good.
A few moments later.
Oh no, oh no, oh no.
So guys, I have made some notes off the back of that experience. I've got them in my hand right now. The biggest one being, forget the atmosphere, the staff working at the London Stadium. Again, as a reminder, West Ham rent the ground. So again, if you were to do a stadium tour like we did, was it last year? Check the video out after this video. The staff work for the London Stadium as opposed to the club, or so I think. So throughout the game, everyone was stood up. That is one thing I liked about the atmosphere. Both sets of fans were stood up at the start, but the upper tier where we were, constantly for about an hour straight, probably longer, the staff were trying to seat us. Of course, I complied like a good boy with the rules, but most of the fans behind me, the West Ham fans, didn't want to sit down, so all we had was back and forth for like an hour of staff trying to make fans sit down. This is football, and of course it's not the staff's fault directly, they're instructed to do so, but the people forcing or enforcing those rules clearly aren't football people. We moan about the lack of atmosphere in England, the dying Premier League atmosphere, but when you've got people working at the stadium forcing fans to sit down, be quiet and be a good boy, the atmosphere of course is going to suffer. Again, I go on about it every video. Can you imagine that in Germany? There's loads of stadiums like the London Stadium in Germany, big dome stadiums. We did the comparison with Bayer Leverkusen. Now, their atmospheres don't suffer as a result. Of course, they're allowed to drink inside the ground. I'm going a bit off topic now, but they've got a lot more, should I say, free reign than us English fans have. If you were to cram half of that crowd into Upton Park, you'd have heard so much better an atmosphere, but as I said earlier on, that noise just doesn't reach the pitch, it travels upwards. It's such a big ground and it really is striking. We've been there before, as I said, to do the tour, but it's not until you get fans inside the ground you really see it for what it is. A lot more striking for me compared to Wembley. I'm never that impressed with the new Wembley. I'm not going to go off topic again and have my rant about the Twin Towers being knocked down, but I was really impressed with the structure, the way it looked. But again, it's not really a football ground, is it? It's an athletics ground. For that reason, for football, you could say, or I would agree, that maybe it is a bad stadium. But it is very difficult to brand one the worst in the Premier League, as there's so many varying factors. Of course, personal opinion comes into it, bias and so on. It depends what you want from a ground. If you want a really pretty, aesthetically looking masterpiece, I think the London Stadium's right up your alley. But if you love the old school grounds like I do, no nonsense, no frills, spit and sawdust and all that, you're probably not going to like this one. You know, I would personally take Kenilworth Road over this, but how much money is Kenilworth Road going to generate Luton Town compared to, and again, I think they pay barely anything, do they, West Ham, to rent that ground? They've got a banging deal. So from a money-making perspective, West Ham are killing it, and I'm sure the ownership really don't care. I'd say 8 out of 10 for the way it looks. It would be marked a 9 if you were closer to the pitch. We mentioned it in the Man City stadium tour. Of course, the Etihad was originally used for the Commonwealth Games in 2002, but the reason they've managed to get a lot closer to the pitch is they dug downwards. So obviously by digging downwards, you're kind of bringing the angles in, and therefore they've got a lot closer to the pitch. Again, as a rival fan, I can't knock the Etihad. Jokes aside, Etihad and all that, they've really improved their atmosphere. Their away support's fantastic. But West Ham can't do that, can they? They can't dig down because they don't own the bloody ground. Probably for me, about a 4 out of 10 for atmosphere. And again, that's not a reflection on West Ham fans. That's a reflection on the design of the stadium. Guys, head over now to that stadium tour on the London Stadium. You'll see loads of different things they've tried to do to improve the atmosphere and to get fans a lot closer to the pitch, including stands that are almost like, I think they're on wheels and they wheel forward. They've done things, they've tried to make it their home. Have they achieved that? I don't know. Is this the worst Premier League stadium? Let us know. Get involved in the comments below and check out the London Stadium tour. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in that video.